My name is David Ryan. I'm the Director of Operations for Cape Cod Oyster Company. So over the past 10 or 15 years, our sole focus has been on oysters. The company has grown from 1 or 2 full-time employees to a team of about 12 people today. We were operating 52 weeks a year, trying to ship close to 100,000 oysters a week on ground that we farm ourselves.
Yeah, we're involved in every step of the process of cultivating oysters, from growing the seed and the floating upwellers to maintaining them throughout their growth stage and then harvesting them and getting them ready to ship out the door. We're involved in every aspect of it.
We started to have certain responsibilities allocated amongst the crew. So then I was responsible for tending to the seed, which is the juvenile oysters. What we do is we take large amounts of them when they come in. They're about the size of quinoa or maybe even a piece of sand. And we put them into a floating upwelling system, which we call a flopsifer sort. It's tanks in the water that pumps seawater, roughly about 300 gallons per hour into each of these little silos that are 3 by 3. So what we're doing is force feeding them the seawater and just making sure that these animals have plenty of food to grow.
So nitrogen is within all of our systems, all of our waterways, and our septic tanks actually put in a lot of nitrogen into the environment. Our plants and our algae do need nitrogen to grow, but our septic tanks put too much nitrogen into the water and overload it. And then what the oysters do is they're actually filtering the water, can filter over 50 gallons a day of seawater, and they're eating the algae, which is full of nitrogen in there. Basically act like a nitrogen sponge or a sieve. Hold onto it, and then when we harvest it and bring it out of the water, that's taking a huge amount of nitrogen out of the water and really helping our local waterways, helping both the recreational boaters, swimmers, as well as our local species as well. Other things like the marsh grass, the other shellfish in the area, all the fish, other commercial species. So it's really a huge, huge benefit to the environment.
There's actually numerous current studies that are taking place right now, and what they're trying to see is, do juvenile oysters remove a substantial amount of nitrogen? So if we do discover that they are removing a sufficient amount, then more towns will be more likely to open up nursery areas for other farmers to be able to have the upwellers and to introduce millions more of these animals to remove the nitrogen.
We call it the Hyannis Upweller Project, and the partners are our organization, Barnstable Clean Water Coalition, the Massachusetts Oyster Project, and the town of Barnstable. We're trying to grow oysters here from tiny little seed up to about 1 inch in length. So we're taking water directly out of Hyannis Harbor. It's being pumped up into the upweller, comes up through these sorting buckets that the oysters are put in. They're not only getting food and growing while they're in the tank, they're improving water quality, they're pulling out nutrients like nitrogen, and then they're also clearing up the water. They improve the water clarity by removing the sediment and the detritus. And then that clean water is going back down into the harbor. Once they grow to about 1 inch, we're taking the oysters out of the tank and we're putting them into town waters. And that's going to allow the oysters to grow until they're of harvestable size, which is 3 inches. And at that point, people in the town of Barnstable who have recreational shellfish licenses can come and harvest those oysters when they're mature and ready.
So in the wild, an oyster grows at about 1 inch per year, so it'd take them 3 years to get to a harvestable size. And when we start them in the upweller, it takes them only about like 1.5 years to 2 years maximum.
The amount of growth that we see on a weekly basis is just unbelievable. For example, our last group of seed that we received in July, when we received it, it weighed 9 kilograms, and in less than 30 days it was 900 kilograms. So if you can imagine the biomass, we receive a package and then it essentially becomes the size of a vehicle within 30 days. So those are essentially my babies. I take a lot of pride in maintaining them and making sure that they are safe and sound.
So in the past 2 years, we've developed 2 pieces of equipment to efficiently clean and grade our oysters. So we have a 2-stage machine that both rinses sand and mud and weed off of oysters, and then it passes through a sizing chamber where a camera actually takes several pictures of an oyster and it sizes it according to our specifications. It just enables us to turn out a very consistent sized oyster that goes into some of the finest retail markets and restaurants all across the country. We shoot to harvest about 20,000 oysters per day, and they're packed daily and delivered in refrigerated trucks to Boston distribution centers.
Once it gets up to this distribution facility up in Boston, it's then sent via truck all the way as far as Denver, and then by air all the way as far as the West Coast. We're in probably 44 different states right now. We get pictures on our social media all the time from faraway places. Our big push this year has been to focus a little bit more on local.
I think what we want to keep improving it. We want to keep hopefully even doing some more oysters next year. What would be good is if we have to try and quantify, how many oysters are going in when they're 1 inch, how many are surviving over the winter, and then how many are reaching that harvestable age. And can try and look at that and try and factor how much nitrogen are all these oysters contributing to removing from the system.
I grew up here. I went to DY High School, went to Westfield State to study biology and chemistry.
I grew up on Cape Cod and went to Barnstable High School. Was involved with some really amazing science programs out at Sandy Neck and in other places. And I really had a love of, the outdoors.
Life kind of brought me back to the Cape. It's one of those things, I even said in college, I'm not going back to the Cape. And then they say, once you get that sand in your shoes, you can't get it out.
I'm a Cape Cod local, and I've been into the environment ever since I was young. I went to school for biology. This is a growing field in the environmental field.
I grew up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. I went to school at New England College for biology with a focus in marine biology. I had actually met somebody special, and I moved down to the Cape about 7 years ago.
It's been a great job. One of the great parts of it is it's very hands-on. You learn every aspect of the business. Every person here, whether you sit at a desk for a few hours a day or you're out at the machine, you're involved with the oysters from when they're brought in as microscopic seed to when they ship out the door as market oysters.
Kind of explored a lot of options after college, a lot of fields, and this one kind of just spoke the most to me. It's, you get to work with your hands out on the water. You can't beat working out on the water in the summer on Cape Cod. Nitrogen is such a big problem on Cape Cod. It's really one of our biggest local problems with our local waterways, and this is a great way to both provide people food and help the environment through nitrogen mitigation.
My biggest piece of advice for a young professional in any of the science fields is, to do something that you're passionate about. For me, straight out of college, I worked in a laboratory that was kept at 80 degrees with no windows. The work was extremely important. It just wasn't for me. I then, I got my feet wet, literally speaking, into the aquaculture industry, and I learned about it.
I love Cape Cod. I love the environment of Cape Cod. Being right on the water is such a blessing that we have, and I really want to be a part of maintaining the environment around here.
Just from what I've seen, even friends not moving back here, and some of it being that there's more opportunity and more offerings in other places. So even though they may want to come back or there might be a desire, unfortunately, some industries, it's hard to come back down here and really, make a way. That's one of the beautiful things about aquaculture and kind of some of the budding industry off of that. A lot of towns are opening up beds because of that nitrogen mitigation. It's not only cleaning up the environment, but also it's drawing some young professionals back to be able to work, where they grew up and be doing something good for the environment and, make a little money at the same time.
My name is Florence Lowell. I've been in the restaurant business for over 35 years. I started in France. I'm a French native. I came to Texas. I worked for a chef in Austin, Texas, and then I own many different restaurants, Italian, Mexican, seafood. And then I came on the Cape 15 years ago, took over the Naked Oyster, and that was the beginning of the story. Somebody approached me and said there is an oyster grant in Barnstable Harbor. Was going to be available. Would you be interested? And I say absolutely. That would be a perfect combination, for us to be able to basically manage the production, because that was a huge part of what we're doing here. Basically, they're hand-picked. I think that is the number one difference. And then we have a creative kitchen, so we're able to test and just try different things. And I think people, when they come here and they see the variety of flavor that we can add to an oyster, they really enjoy that. So there is a huge tide. There is a massive flow in Barnstable Harbor. If you're standing there like Sandy Neck, it's just a very impressive thing to watch. There is two things what happen. The nourishment comes from the ocean, from the tide coming in, and also from the tide coming out. So I think this is a very special spot on the Cape. The oysters grow, really nicely. I think the product is, plump, and you have the sweetness, and you have the really nice balance with the salt. I think it's an awesome product. I would say November and December are this is amazing. The flavors in those oysters are totally developed. They get ready to go dormant for the winter, so they have really, basically plumped up. And the local knows that, and they're here, and they enjoy them. We serve oysters so many different ways. One kind of a sushi style, which is called oishi, and he has pickled ginger and soy and a little wasabi. The baked oyster, we have Rockefeller, and people love that. We also serve them with caviar and sour cream, and I love those. Some people come in and I say, I never tried an oyster, or we just say, we're gonna pick one out for you, just, like a small one. Tell us the flavor you like a little lemon, and then, usually they try. I would say most of the time they really like it. I come from that part of France that growing oyster is a main part of the economy. It doesn't mean that you can have tourism at the same place. It has never stopped people from enjoying, the shore, the swimming, the fishing. And so I think it's very compatible to have oyster farming and tourism. The town of Barnstable, I put huge amount of effort to help aquacultures. I benefit from that, and I'm very grateful for it. But I really feel like this is, providing a massive amount of jobs. It promotes the town. I feel like Barnstable Oysters, just the name Barnstable Oysters, is gonna have a place, just like as Wellfleet. The production is amazing. You have very, very serious farmers out there, people who want to grow the economy, people want to promote the town, people want to promote the name. So I think, it's going the right direction.